So welcome everybody. This is Starting Out Bright. And in case we have not met before, my name is Noreen Savage. And I want to introduce myself and tell you who I am, but who I'm not. I'm not anybody official with Bright Line Eating, but I have gotten a lot out of the program. To tell you about myself, I found out about Bright Line Eating, as many people do, by somebody posting on Facebook. And my friend Lori was the one who posted. I had no idea that she was using a program like this. And she said she lost 57 pounds in 1 year. And I thought, what in the world? And she said, if you're interested, just private message me and I will give you the scoop. So my little fingers flew over to the messenger as fast as they could. And I asked Lori about it, and she told me about 4 bright lines that you don't cross in Bright Line Eating. And if you're familiar already, there's a book, Bright Line Eating by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson. And the 4 bright lines are no sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, and weighed and measured portions. And you can imagine, I thought, absolutely no way could I do that. And, I had all those questions like, you mean no flour? Like, no, not even honey or anything? Nope. And so my heart sunk. But I was in a place of being 270 pounds, 5'2". That was a lot of weight, and I was in a lot of pain. Foot pain, a tremendous knee pain. I looked the other day when I went into the bedroom at night and I noticed the cane in the corner because I started using a cane that very last couple weeks. And that gave me a willingness to try something so radical, so extreme as Bright Line Eating. But now I'm grateful for that willingness because now I'm a little over 70 pounds less and I'm feeling so good. I'm a long way from goal, but I'm doing well. And one thing that got me here was the groups. Lori suggested that that I get the book and that I get into the community. At that time, I got into We Eat Right with Lines. From there, I found many others. There are probably 50 private groups. There's the official Facebook official, Bright Line Eating official. And I was just noticing all these people who were sharing their success and their hope and their encouragement. And I promised myself that if I lasted 1 year, I would do what my friend Lori did. I would post on my private Facebook page and I would help anybody I could. Well, as that year got close and I was ready to post, I felt I'm a Christian and I felt God was telling me, Noreen, you can do more. And it was the time of Zooms. And I felt strongly that I could connect people. And wouldn't that be great if we could just connect and hear these wonderful stories of people who have used Bright Line Eating and have changed their lives. I've been so humbled that people have stepped forward and told their stories. And tonight you are going to just really enjoy another fantastic story. A great person here is Anna Peregoy. And Anna, hello. How are you? Oh, you're muted, so please unmute.
And again, am I better now?
Yes.
I'm here now, yay!
I told a little bit about myself, and I'm sure everybody's waiting to hear, what is your story? How did you get into Bright Line Eating? And, looking at you, if I had just met you, I thought you had never had weight to lose. But that is
People tell me that, and my general response is you don't see me naked, because when you lose the amount of weight I've lost, you can tell when I take my clothes off.
Well, let's get the stats then right away.
But that's okay, because, I when I see it, I say I put my body through a lot of abuse for a long time, and if what it wants to give me is some loose skin here and there for it, but then I earned that too, I guess, right? It's fine. So yeah, I can jump to stats too. I have been Bright Line Eating. I did not check my numbers. I think it's 405 days today since I started Bright Line Eating. And it was a long time coming. I should have started a long time before. I came from a family of very, very heavy people, very sick people. And I have been dieting since I can remember. Like at 8, I was probably drinking weight loss shakes for breakfast. But I've also, since that started, been a binge eater. Some of my earliest memories are binge eating, hiding in a closet, eating food where people can't see me, and then hiding the wrappers. And
As a child.
as a child, yeah, absolutely. And as an adult, it kept going. It was just more like fast food in my car where people couldn't see me, taking the long way home with it so I could eat in my car before I got home to where my family was. Because the whole time while I'm binge eating, I'm preaching healthy eating to my kids, right? Like that's the sadness of all of this, because I did not want them to end up the way I was. And I was taught really bad habits and really bad coping mechanisms, and they continued. But when my wake up call happened, when my dad had yet another heart attack, and I want to say it was third, fourth. And I picked him up from the hospital, and I was driving him home, and he was in the seat next to me near tears, which is not something my dad does. And they had told him that he would probably be on dialysis for the rest of his life between the, poor choices for so long. He had damaged his body, and he had planned this trip with my kids and the rest of the grandkids to do like this road trip this summer, for weeks. And they said, you can't do that. You have to go get dialysis every other day. You can't do anything. And he was devastated. Yeah. He was sitting there devastated, like this man that was like, I'll live fast and die young. It's fine. And he realized that that's not really how it works. And I realized at that moment that that's not how it works. We don't like live fast and die young. We live fast. We eat whatever we want. And then we suffer and we lose everything that we love because we can't do it. I mean, he wants to go fishing and hunting and all these things that he loves, and he can't. And there's a long time before dying, between eating yourself to the inability to do what you want and dying. There's a big gap there. And that's not something he planned for. And seeing that and realizing that I was doing the exact same thing he was doing and that I was on that path, it was like, turn around. And I don't know why I didn't get it after the first heart attack or the second heart attack. And maybe it's because I got older, and maybe it's because I did start to have some foot pain. Maybe it's because I have older kids now that I want to save if I can from this life, but something clicked that day. And I was lucky enough to have known Tony Wade, which I think everybody in this community knows because he's yes. Tony Wade. Mm-hmm. And I know him personally, and I had seen him just before the big pandemic lockdown. So I started in June, and lockdown happened in like May, right? March. Okay.
March began. Yeah.
Maybe it was March. Okay. So yeah, you're right. It was an event, and he was near his goal weight. And I was like, dude, look at you, man. You look great. It must've been so hard. And he goes, actually, it was easy. And I said, you said that to this fat girl. And I just kind of walked away and laughed. But after I drove my dad to the hospital that night, I looked up Tony on Facebook, who we were friends. And I dug for a while till I found Susan Pierce Thompson's name. And then I dug a little deeper, and I'm Facebook stalking her. And then I end up at the 14-day challenge. And before I went to bed that night, I was signed up for the 14-day challenge, and I was ready to get started. I said, this is it. This is what I have to do. The videos spoke to me in a way that nothing else had. I had the book ordered, and I knew that I had to change my life, or I was going to end up just like my dad.
This is profound. But what really is amazing, there are a couple of things you said. One, you didn't talk to Tony about, I'm going to start this now, but he was the example for you.
Yeah, it took me like at least 30 days. I want to say it was 30 days. And I messaged him on Facebook and went, I've been eating bright for 30 days, and maybe some of that was because I didn't know I was going to keep doing it. How many diets? I mean, I've done every diet. And so when I went to bed that night, I had a plan. Right? I was going to wake up the next day, and I was going to start the 14-day challenge, and I was going to write my food down. And then the next day I was going to eat just that food. Right? But how many times, at least for me, I have laid in my bed 100 times before, and I've had a plan, and I was going to not eat until 2:00 and do intermittent fasting, or I was going to not do this, or I was going to only eat this. And I have laid in my bed more times than I can count with a good plan for a diet tomorrow. And the second my feet hit the ground, it's already gone. Like the fear of illness and the fear of like, is my heart beating funny? Am I going to have a heart attack? And that passes while I sleep, and I wake up and I do the exact same thing to myself. So maybe I didn't message Tony till I hit 30 days because I didn't know.
But here you are, you actually took action right away after you were with your dad. That trip from the hospital, that was huge. And we got together by Zoom the other day, and you said something else to me that really spoke volumes. All of the pieces about addiction, you understood because you knew that you weren't hiding your addiction.
Right. I have always entered this as a recovery program. And so the very first day that I had to eat my bright food, like I had written it down the night before, and I was going to eat my bright food the next day, there was a potluck for my daughter's horse barn. And so I went to this horse barn and I brought food to share for everybody. And I brought my little container of my Brightline food. And I just told myself as I was driving over there, like, look, my addiction isn't hiding from anyone. Yeah. I wear this suit of addiction out to everybody. I can hide it now, maybe, like you said, right? It hides now. My addiction's not gone, but I can hide it now. It was not hiding then. So why should my recovery be a secret? My eating disorder is not a secret.
Right. And
I thought it was. I thought hiding the bags meant nobody knew I was eating it. I thought that eating when nobody was in the house was hiding that I was eating it, but I wore every bit of that on my body.
There's just so much isolation about that piece. But I think that you also said at the potluck, if I remember right, he's like, I started a new program or something, and nobody's going to argue with you. Like, oh, right. No, you don't need to. I'm
sitting here at almost 300 pounds going, I'm starting a recovery program for food addiction. And nobody went, what do you mean? Like, that nobody, you don't need that. Nobody said that. They all know that I needed to change, that I needed to make a difference.
That's really novel to me that, to actually say that, with I'm
an open book in a lot of ways. So
yeah,
except apparently when I was hiding my food. That's about the only thing I've ever hidden from anybody.
Well, let's talk about some of the tools that really got you to where you are now, because you are at goal, sure. Right? Or darn
I am. Close. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
You're at goal, and that is no small feat. Was it a straight ride down?
For the most part, it really was. For as far as my weight was concerned, it was a very, very, I was good at it. And that's actually the funny thing. That's my challenge right now, is I was really good at losing weight. And I was really good at following the plan and putting my bright food in and being good at that. Maintenance has caused more of a stir. Now, not with my food. I am still 100% bright. And I will sacrifice a lot in my life to make sure that happens, because my recovery is first. My food is first. If it is, a social event with friends I haven't seen in months, but I can't have my food there, I won't go. Like, my food will always come first. But it was a fairly linear path to get here. The tools that I've been needing have been more now as I've entered my maintenance goal. And my tools, we've always had tools, right? We have community and connection. And I always write my food down, and I always eat exactly what I wrote down, and I will not falter on that. I did play with the idea of not doing that at one point, but I never stopped, and I don't want to now. I love my food journal.
You talked about even like you listened to a vlog from Susan that you took to heart, that you use every day. And that's something we haven't talked about in Starting Out Bright.
Yeah, and
I
so
did look
that
up the
is one
blog.
that it's kind of a newer one too. So like I started my first maintenance ad a little over 100 days ago because of extreme hunger, not because I was in my weight range, but I knew I was getting close and it was time to like slow it down. And when I made that first maintenance ad is when I started doing the risk assessment every day. And so that came from the three stages of a break vlog that was recommended to me. And it is a very effective tool. So I felt as I was hitting that extreme hunger, right? That's what right there. Like I'm really hungry. That's a risk right there for a break when we're fighting. I mean, before I had that first ad, I white knuckled it for like 6 months of like just so, or not 6 months, 6 weeks, I'm sorry, of just so hungry between my lunch and dinner meal, or breakfast and lunch meal. And it was painful. And I was like, but I'm not near goal. I can't have an ad. And the risk assessment became a very powerful tool for me because I wanted to know how sensitive do I need to be to myself today? How aware do I need to be of the situations I'm putting myself in? Is it a good idea to go to a potluck right now? Do I need to make sure my food is prepped ahead of time because I feel weaker in my program in this moment? And so I actually brought my little Post-it, which is funny. It usually sticks on my bathroom window over here, or mirror. And every morning I look at my little risk assessment Post-it. It's not fancy. It's literally a Post-it, right? Just a Post-it. But so Susan Pierce Thompson has like a whole spreadsheet. She's a spreadsheet girl. I am not. I don't like tech much either. Like I want everything on paper. I write my journals on paper. I do all of it. So this just has things for me personally that make me more tempted to go to the food. So am I emotional? Am I having trouble with my teenagers? I have 3 teenage daughters. I'm sorry. I have 3 teenage children. I have 1 non-binary child. So I have to get out of the habit of saying that. That is new information for me. Sorry. I have 3 children. There we go. We'll stick with that one. So am I having trouble with my children? That always makes me highly emotional. And that's a time to go to the food for me. So am I feeling that? And every morning I'm asking myself these questions like, is there an emotional situation to deal with? Do I have high stress right now? Am I really busy? Because when I'm really busy, that's risk because am I going to have time to make my food? Am I going to want to stop and grab something quick, right? Am I tired? And tired is honestly, okay, when I just talked about being emotional, like especially with my kids, that might be my top trigger, but being tired is tied right up there with it. I mean, if I am tired, and Susan talks about the science of that too, like your body actually trying to tell you you need more food when you're tired. The other things on my list are like, is there a big social function where we are going to be tempted with NMF or something? And the opposite side of am I too busy is, do I have too much downtime? Because when I have too much downtime, that leads to wanting to do things too.
Boredom.
Making changes to my food plan, whether it's meal times or an ad or, removing a food item, that's a risk factor right there. That starts messing with my mind. And then obviously like travel, reentry type things. We all tend to struggle with that one.
Or even an event like this.
Right, exactly.
You have the post-event collapse syndrome.
And I totally wrap post-event collapse into travel reentry for sure. And so when I look at that, there's 8 items on my list. And so when I look at that every morning, I give myself a score. Today, I have a very low score of 1 of 8. I feel very safe in my program. If my children wanted to go get NMF and I had to sit there and watch them eat it, I'd feel comfortable with that. 3 days ago, my score was like a 6 out of 8, and I would not have wanted to take them to the store to get NMF or be anywhere near it. And those are the kinds of bunny slipper approaches I take to it. Or if I know that tomorrow is going to be a high risk factor day, not only did I write my food down that day, but it's in containers ready to go. Like I'm going to be busy. I have to take my kid to the dentist and she has anxiety, right? Like it's going to be super high stress. I'm going to be super busy. I'm going to be really emotional. I'm going to I can predict this is a high risk day for me. I will not only write my food down, but I will have them in containers, packaged, weighed, ready to go. No excuses, girl. Like you're at a high risk moment. And I take that very seriously because like I said, my recovery is first. My food comes first, because if I let this go, all of the other things start to fall apart. I'm not as attentive as a mother or a wife. I don't have the energy to be the kind of employee I am, I'm not as organized. I feel like as Bright Line Eaters, because of the systems we put in place to keep our program protected, we can function at a higher level than some people. And I really feel that this program allows me to function at a higher level than I ever was able to before.
Well, I'm just amazed by even the whole, I'm packing food. Like even when working remotely, when I started realizing that, you know what, this could kind of be a slippery slope working from home. I thought, I can't let this mess with me. I'm going to pack my lunch as if I'm going into the office. It sounds crazy, but when you're hungry and you open up the refrigerator and you have other people living in the house who have other things in the refrigerator that look a whole lot more fun than what I was planning, I found that really was helpful, at least for a few days when I was feeling kind of like stretched. And if somebody else has other ideas that could include great risk factors to think about, I would suggest put them in the chat, because these are really important things to pay attention to. And I didn't really think about that until we talked the other day.
I find it so helpful
to arm yourself. So what have you done besides the food? I remember you saying something about taking your daughter, one of the children, to practice, and you realized you were in a high risk day. And
that was a couple of weeks ago, and I was really emotional and really tired, and the really emotional part was the worst. And I take my daughter to a practice where I end up just staying in the town she's in, because it's not close by, for like 2 hours, and I sit there usually and read, or I'll catch up on Bright Line Eating stuff or whatever. But I knew, because of the situation I was in, that if I was left alone in my car, which I've already explained was a binge thought for me, right? Like it already has its own implications. I knew that if I was left alone that night, that I would drive and get NMF, and I would have sat in that car and I would have eaten it. And I felt every bit of my body was so sure that that's was going to happen. So I went, this is a problem. I cannot be trusted to be left alone right now. And so I reached out to my older niece, who is an adult, and I called her and I said, you know what? I really need you tonight. She lives in the town that I'm in. And so I said, I really need you tonight. I need someone to talk to. I need to not be alone by myself right now. And she said, yeah, I had things to do, but I'm going to change it. And she changed her plans, and we sat and I drank a cold black coffee and we talked, and I ended up leaving that interaction feeling so much better, feeling my feelings were validated, but also like supporting my child that I was having trouble with, and then also not putting poison into my body to try and make myself feel better. I instead was able to put in support of someone who loved me and get myself out of that situation, because I knew it wasn't safe. I knew I wasn't safe with my food, with food.
That is so important. I think that's such a great tip to really think about this risk assessment. And I love that you do it every day. A little simple sticky note. How easy is that? And
I've actually started tracking it too, because part of this maintenance challenge that I've been through is like, without the scale going down, how do I know that I've been successful? And so in my new journal that I got, my new planner I have a spot where I'm writing like, how was my food chatter? What were my risks? How hungry was I? And so I've got like, and I'm just a score. It's not a big deal. And I also, based on just a few days ago, a talk with another friend, I've started giving myself a grade on how like my BLE day was, like just did you, taste that sauce while you were making it? You get an A-. Like, and it's just silly, but it's something that like makes me like just really reflect on my day and how it went.
Well, even the food hunger piece, I think was really beneficial to you at one point too, that you added that in as a suggestion
Yeah, and
from
the
your
reason
group?
why, yeah, it was my group suggested tracking my hunger because so like with my first ad, I said I'm feeling hungry all the time, but I was like 30 pounds from goal weight still. Well, I was 15 pounds from what I thought was my goal weight, probably 30 from what I am now, because I kept going down after I hit what I thought was my goal weight. So I was still quite far, like 15 pounds was farther than I was supposed to be to enter maintenance. But I was telling them, like, I'm hungry. And they said, I want you to track it, write it down. So I tracked it for like 4 weeks. But by the time I had already talked to them, it had already been 2 weeks or something. And so I finally, after 6 weeks, made my first ad. And I sat with that one for a long time and I was fine. And then just recently, the hunger has cropped up again. It's like jumped up again. And so I was talking to my groups and my support, and I said, I've got to start tracking the hunger again. And I want to track where it's at because I want to know where to make my next maintenance ad. So today I wrote a note. I was very hungry between breakfast and lunch today, which has not been my pattern. Usually it's been lunch and dinner. But today it was between breakfast and lunch, like 10:30 hit, and I was just like, so I made note of it. Now that doesn't fit the pattern of what's been happening before. My pattern has been between lunch and dinner. So maybe it's a one-off moment, maybe, or maybe data will show that that's the next place I need food is at breakfast. Who knows?
Well, I think you're onto something because I know from talking with a friend, Barb, who's on the call, and hitting maintenance is no joke. That you call it the hokey pokey.
Yes, I do. So everybody says the maintenance dance, right? And so my husband went into maintenance before I did. I have not had to take anything out yet. I have just been adding. But my husband went into maintenance before I did. He started BLE after I did. I think he released around 65 pounds. You know what? I never did say numbers. I have at this point released 120. So together we've released whole people,
That's just so amazing. It's so
yeah, so
crazy.
he entered maintenance before I did, and he, added. He added so many that I swear some of his meals look like it's a potluck dish to share. I mean, it's like you eat that at work and people don't look at you funny. I mean, it's huge portions. But anyway, he'd add them in, and then his weight would bump back up out of the range he would want to be below. And I'd go, okay, why don't you take that last grain out or that last, fat out or whatever. And that's when I decided to call it the hokey pokey, because he's stabilized pretty well now. But for about 5 or 6 months, it was like you put your last ad in, you take your last ad out. And it was like this whole dance that he did, to try and get to the right place. I saw him weigh today. I almost feel like he needs to put his last ad back in. We'll wait and see what he thinks about it.
This is true. Someone else said, don't get too attached to that ad because you might have to take it out.
Yeah,
that is true. But you said something else just now that made me think of a conversation we had too, and that is food envy or any kind of envy.
Sure.
Because you can look at someone's potluck dish, but really it's their plate.
Right.
And you can have someone say, boy, it must be nice, but that person might be having a hard time struggling to even get through that.
It's true. I definitely think there is, and I have looked at his plates and envied it before. Sure. I've been like, I want a giant plate. Like, I'm a quantities girl. I want all the food, right?
Thanks.
And then at the same time, I've sat there and watched him struggle to eat it. Something, you know what I mean? It's that other side of it, that envy, or I mean, there's a recent thing that I've seen kind of pop up in the Facebook groups of people not wanting to see before and after photos, which, like you were sharing, is what inspired you.
Yes.
I didn't have a before and after photo that inspired me. I had a before and after human that I watched, right, that inspired me to get here. And I've heard some talk about like they don't want to see your before and after photos, or like, I'm jealous that you have that many ads, or, oh, you've lost too much weight. Oh, I wish I had that problem. And those kind of comments, and we kind of discussed this a little bit, that I feel like it's not like being as kind to all of our struggles that we're going through, right? We are all struggling with an addictive brain. We are all struggling to find some kind of peace around food. And we've all been challenged to do that. There's a reason we're here, right?
Right.
And being too low doesn't feel any better than being too high to
Well,
the
and
person
you know
that's in
what?
that position. And there's no empathy in that kind of statement.
And I thought about this, and I do not think that envy and support can be in the same person. Like, I don't know that you can truly support somebody you're truly envious of. It's
I've always
because
thought
that's
of,
not empathy enough to support. And you had mentioned a definition. I don't know if you have it with you, but
I do, but I was going to say, like, the other thing is that I think that envy really, when we're envying someone's, bowl of food or someone's before and after photos or whatever, we've recently been discussing this in one of my groups, that I think it's really a call for us to look at ourselves. And that's where that quote comes in. And I do have it somewhere because I wrote it down.
And I don't even know if you want me to share this, but you said something about at one point you actually almost envied somebody who could purge because you were a binger.
Right. Okay. And I did say that. And man, was I ignorant to think that. That's how I feel now. I absolutely said that. And I absolutely felt that. Because people who binge and purge still get to look good, right? People who binge, like I did, we get to wear that, right? And I didn't realize the suffering and the pain that by my saying, like, oh, I'm jealous, you can go throw up and I can't. I was so invalidating the pain and the struggle and the suffering that person was going through. And I think that's kind of where you're getting through with the envy and the support, right?
Right.
But I think envy is a very natural emotion. We all feel it. I think it's definitely something that comes up, but I think it's a sign, a trailhead, as we would call it in parts work, to explore what we need to do within ourselves. Like in that case, I need to find empathy and understanding for the struggles of these other people around me. I need to, focus on my program and how to make myself a better human. And that's why I mean too, when I say that right line eating just doesn't make me a better eater, it's made me a better person.
That's
because it does call for me to be empathetic and understanding. And the quote was funny. It came up on a podcast I was listening to when we were discussing this with another group, like envy and that kind of thing. And it was, envy is your own unfulfilled potential projected on another. And I thought that was just so profound to think, like, that feeling is a call of what I can do to be more of my authentic self or be my best self, or, however you want to say it. And so be just a better human.
right.
And so when I feel that feeling now, I want to think like, okay, what's that asking? What am I needing to look at within myself? This is not about that person. This isn't about their success. This isn't about their big bowl of food. This is about me and what I need to focus on to do my inner work.
Yeah. And like, I don't know if it connects or not to the feelings of missing out, that you can be envious of the food people get to eat and all of that.
Oh, sure.
And, and that can lend itself to like the food that is in the groups and all of that. And at some point, whether it's in your home or in the group, and I may not be popular for saying this, you make adjustments. And I know you did at home with a sign on a door.
Sure, that showed up in there. I have other people in my house that don't eat bright line eating, and I did separate the food as much as I could. Like, I don't want to open the refrigerator and see it every time, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a cabinet that has most of their food in it. There's a drawer in the fridge that has most of their food in it. And we tend to eat really healthy in our house in general, but they have their things, right?
Right.
So I did separate them, and on the inside of that cabinet, I had that sign that said, what is it? Danger. Not only will this kill you, but it will hurt the entire time you're dying. Oh. And that's the way I think of that NMF. That's the way I think of that food. And I think back to that moment in the car with my dad. I think to how much he was hurting while that food was killing him. And it continues to kill him now. And I think of that. But you're right, we have to see it, right? We are going to see NMF. And so I have little tools in my head. I think of that sign when I see NMF. I would go through the grocery store when I was shopping before, and I would literally be in my head like, that's not my food. That's not my food. And my kids would be like, why are you bouncing? I'm like, because I'm singing the It's Not My Food song. And I would look at it, that's not my food. Or danger, that will kill you and hurt the entire time you're dying. And those thoughts would come up in my head. And so with thoughts of maybe it's envy, I drive past that same kid's class on the freeway. I drive past a billboard for a fast food chain, and they've got their like new picture every month. And I have so many times thought about wanting to light that thing on fire. But the truth is, I'm going to have to see it. And you know what I realized the other day? I have no idea what's on that sign right now. They change it regularly, but I have been doing this long enough now that that sign doesn't have any power over me anymore. It did. That sign had power over me, and I would sing the song, or I would picture myself suffering, or whatever tools I had to use to get by that sign without pulling over to get it. But we are going to have to look at NMF.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in a world where it's everywhere, right? And so I think blocking it from yourself for a while is great if you can, right? Like that's why alcoholics go into treatment centers. That's why people say all the time, like, I wish there was a BLE treatment center where I could be away from all of this. But once we re-enter the world, you have to see it. And so you have to have tools to shut that down, strengthen your resolve. And then, like I said, after a while, I realized I don't know what they're advertising right now. They change it often enough.
That's really new neural pathways that you've done.
Right.
I want to pivot to maintenance because if I remember right, you actually had a conversation with Susan Pierce Thompson about maintenance.
It did.
Let's talk. How did that happen, and where did you go from there?
I was calling in on an accountability call. At that point, I had already had one ad, but I had a ways to go for my weight, and I was dealing with some hunger again. And so I wanted some coaching on how to handle that. And based on my starting weight, which was 256 point something, I think. And my goal weight that I had, which was 140, 145, I thought. Mm-hmm. And I was still probably at that point 10 pounds from it, even though I had said earlier, like, look, my goal kept moving. So these numbers aren't going to add up. Don't try. My goal kept getting moved. So at that time when I called, I was like, my goal is 140, 145, and I'd like to add another ad. I'm dealing with some hunger. And we discussed that I'd want to add vegetables at lunch and dinner. I know some people are like, more vegetables. And I was like, yes. I told you I was a quantities girl. I want a plate that looks like a potluck dish, and that's cool. And so during our discussion, though, she made a comment like, where did you start? Where are you at? And where you want to go? 140, 145. And she goes, yeah, 135, 140. And I was like, you're ridiculous. That is never going to happen. And I just thought that she was crazy. Like my first goal weight was less than 200. My second goal weight, when I listened to the boot camp and she says, think big, I was like, okay, 180. And then at some point in the middle of boot camp, I was like, okay, maybe I can do 160. And this is what I mean. It kept moving because I, as an adult, have never been anywhere near those numbers. I was once I was 150. I was taking diet pills. I was exercising 3 or 4 times a day, like crazy. And I was very unhealthy. And even then, I tapped 150 and ran away from it like it was on fire. Like I tapped 150 and I woke up a year later and I was 250. And I can't tell you what happened in the middle, but I can tell you how I got started to get that big again. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about maintenance.
No.
Okay, we can go there.
So
here's the thing. I touched 150 that time.
But
and
what
then
was the trigger?
And then I thought I could blend bananas with yogurt at night and have it as a treat, a snack. And then I thought I could have air popped plain popcorn. So when I hear people in the BLE community go, why can't I have popcorn, or why can't I blend fruit to make, ice cream? And I'm like, don't do it. It's a trap. It was, I swear that's what I did. I started eating popcorn and blended bananas, and then a fog came over me, and I woke up a year later and I was 250 pounds. And
Yeah,
I never saw 150 on a scale twice, but
it's
except
just
now.
so easy. It's just so easy to go back.
It's so easy to lose it, which again, why my recovery and my food will always come first. And I will not make exceptions. I just won't.
Yeah.
I've gone whole food plant-based since I started Bright Line Eating, but only in the last few months. And if I'm at a restaurant and the option is, or if I'm in I wouldn't even say a restaurant, because if I'm in a restaurant, I can walk next door to a grocery store. Like, I live in an area where there's not like an abundance of food. But in an emergency situation, I would always pick animal product over any NMF. Like, I will absolutely not eat off my plan.
And
Because you see how quick the slope
getting
goes.
back to the maintenance part,
Yeah.
from what I understand, you added first a ways away from where you thought you would land, but
Yeah.
because you were so hungry, you knew
Yeah.
you needed to add something. And you had been tracking in your journal
Yep.
what your hunger level was and when that hunger was happening.
Right. So I knew that when I wanted to add, I needed the add between breakfast and lunch. My first add was a half a grain and a protein at breakfast, because that was when I was struggling. Like, getting to lunch every day was painful. It was really painful. And so I made that add, and that really, really helped. And then recently I've needed to add. And at first I started tracking my hunger for a different reason. My weight was getting below what my goal weight was. And I wasn't hungry at first. And I was like, where am I going to put an ad? Like, I don't have any cues to tell me where I need it. So I started tracking like any amount of hunger at that point and really noting it to know where my ad should be. And like clockwork, my body knew that an ad needed to come because the hunger came like the next week after I was like, I think I need to add, but I'm not hungry. And the next week it was like, oh, you're not hungry? You are now. And so I think my number maybe was ready to go even a little bit lower. That's the other thing, is I really struggled to stop the weight loss and decide on a goal weight. But I have hit it now. I am officially there. And when I laughed at Susan Pierce Thompson for 135, 140, I apologize, Susan, if you ever listen to any of these recordings. Of course you are right. Because I'm settling at 135 to 140. And it's possible that it might even, hit 133 or something silly like that. But my range is in the 135 range, which is what Susan said I could do. And I thought she was ridiculous.
Are there any special tricks you have with meal planning? Because you said now you're doing everything ahead of time, right?
What's funny is a little bit has changed since we talked last week. But I do prepare my breakfast and my lunch the day before every day. My lunch is always leftover dinner or salad. So that's just the way I cook. And my husband eats the same thing. So after we cook dinner and we eat dinner and the kids eat dinner, we pack up our lunches out of what's left on the thing. And if there's not enough left over, it's salad and dry roasted edamame. Like, there's always something, right?
Right.
And I was for a while packing my dinners as well because of my meal timing. I wasn't eating with my family anyway, but I have recently decided that I was missing the communal aspect of eating with my family when I could. I mean, granted, they're all teenagers, they all have lives, and our chances to sit down and eat a meal together are few and far between, honestly. But when it would happen and I had already eaten my meal earlier because I was doing like a version of intermittent fasting, I was really missing that. And so I've recently changed my meal time. So my dinner is not made ahead of time anymore, but my breakfast and lunch are 100% made ahead of time. And I will always do that. And it works even on the weekends, whether I have work or not, it's made ahead of time. And I'm prepping like crazy right now because we're getting ready for a trip to Disneyland with our family, and I will be taking all of my food. I have Ziploc bags that have all of my quantities written down of what I need, and I will be taking everything in because I will eat only and exactly what I have written down.
So what can you bring to Disney? Like, what do you particularly think that you can pack? Because I've actually had this conversation with people. Like, there's nothing in Disney, so what would you even bring?
Yeah, and the other addition is that I eat whole food plant-based too, so I also am not going to eat a lot of the other stuff they have there. But when I decided to pack this, I make a breakfast bake. You showed a picture of it, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And I really have only 3 breakfasts I eat. I have like a hot oatmeal when it's cold, and it's California right now, and we are not cold. So I've not had oatmeal in months. But I have a hot oatmeal. I have like a overnight yogurt, overnight oats thing. That's what I eat a lot right now. But I also eat this breakfast bake, and that's good for when like I work really early. Like I have to be at work at 4:30. So sometimes some days. So sometimes I just want to grab the breakfast bake and go. So I will be taking my breakfast bake for my breakfast, and that is everything for my maintenance ads added in. And in my Ziploc for lunch, I have 3 ounces of dry roasted edamame, which is my maintenance portion of edamame. So I'm bringing edamame, an apple, because that'll go in a backpack and not break like so many other fruits, right? The sturdiest of fruits is the apple. So I will be taking an apple for my lunch every day. I will be taking carrots and celery. I will be taking the little individual servings of either avocado or hummus. They're perfectly measured out in BLE portions for fat. So I've got my vegetables, my protein, my fat. For grain, which I get now, I thought I was going to bring Triscuits. And then I had a Triscuit the other day for my grain. And I was like, girl, you can't eat Triscuits. Those are triggery. So I picked up some rice cakes and some of the Mary's Gone crackers, which are less triggery than a Triscuit for me. So that will be my grain. And dinner is a very similar meal. I have little packages of olives. They come in 2-ounce packages too, believe it or not. So you can take 2 ounces of olives and my other vegetables, and I'm going to bring nut butter and rice cakes and that kind of thing. And nut butter is in the little packages that come, they're already an ounce, right? So I bring 2 of them, and I've got my 2 ounces of nuts.
I think we're going to find more and more of things packed. I really do, as this becomes a movement too.
It's just a Ziploc full of stuff, right? And I wrote lunch and dinner, and I'm going to put everything in and have it ready to go, and it will just be super easy. Now, my husband eats bright line eating, but eating like that would be very hard for him because he just wants it to be a little more exciting. So he will eat that. He'll eat his BLE breakfast at the hotel. He eats like cereal, and he eats like one of the cereals and fruit and, like milk or non-dairy milk. And he'll eat that back at the hotel, including his BLE approved protein powder. And then he will eat lunch like me. But for dinner, we will struggle to find him bright line meals. And he will go out of the park if we have to. And he's also much lower on the susceptibility scale. He is also much more willing to make exceptions, and I am not. And for that reason, if all I eat for 4 days for my vegetables is carrot sticks, I'll eat carrot sticks, and I will not care because I don't make exceptions. And he's a little more willing. I think the only reason why he can get away with that, though, is he might make an exception for one meal, but he lives with someone who doesn't, right? So you're not going to get off track as easily when your wife makes you your dinner and it's bright the next day, right? So
you know what? I think that what you just said, I may have taken it a different way in my mind because I don't have this situation. My husband does not need a program like this. He's like a number 1 on the susceptibility scale. He's been in his right size body since high school. We were high school sweethearts, so he's never had a weight problem.
Yeah.
And I often wonder, what would I do if my spouse or partner, whatever, if my spouse though was on the program and then got off? I mean, I'm hearing from you, like, this is I am protecting this recovery with everything I've got. I know a lot of it goes to the thoughts of your dad, but just right. I am holding this like someone would hold a fragile, crystal vase almost, really.
Right. And I was just answering a chat question, but here's the thing. Yes, I definitely protected, but I also didn't let my husband start when I did. when I first started, he wanted to start Bright Line eating with me. He was like, so, this sounds good. I need to lose some weight too. I'll start with you. And I said, I'm sorry, you can't. I said, I need to focus on my own recovery, and I can't deal with you and me at the same time. I need to focus on myself. And so, like, sure, the Bright Line, the dinners I made were mostly bright, except it had like a grain, or, maybe it had a few added NMF items, but I was still eating dinner with my family then. So most of it was bright. And so he kind of was dipping his toes in it, but I would not let him join me on Bright Line eating for 2 months because I didn't want to deal with his emotions, his feelings. I needed to just focus on myself, and I needed to build up that strength and resilience within myself so that now when we maybe have a party and he decides that he wants to have some of that NMF, I still don't, because our programs are not tied together. They're not the same. I have my program and he has his, and he's very successful doing what he does, but it would not work for me because I'm not made that way. And because one time I blended a banana and ate some popcorn and woke up 250 pounds.
Yeah, we're not going to do that anymore.
What I remind myself of.
Yeah, that's so true. We're running out of time. I want to ask you 2 more questions.
Sure.
One is, so with all of this, what would you say are your top non-scale victories?
My first one would be that it has changed for my children, just like I was hoping it would. Granted, they're still teenagers. They're still making teenager decisions. But one of my kids has like an issue that's similar to arthritis, right? So she had to do an elimination diet to really find out what was causing her pain. And because she had watched me say no thank you to people for months, she went through the holidays saying no thank you to flour, sugar, nightshades, so like tomatoes and all of that, dairy. She went off of all of that stuff all through the holiday season. And I know that the fact that she watched me for almost a year before say, no, thank you. No, thank you. We were just no, thank you buddies all through the holiday season. And we were able to find out some of her main triggers. Believe it or not, they're flour and sugar. What? Clutch your pearls, people. It's insane. So flour and sugar are huge triggers for her joint pain. Wow. So it's healed her. One of my other children, they think about what they're eating more now. They think like, I've already had something sweet today. Maybe I won't have any more, and it has changed their relationship with food. I tell them all the time I wouldn't want them to want to weigh and measure their food. I would like them to have a healthier relationship. And I tell them that mine's already broken, right? Like I have already broken my relationship with food to a point that I can't be trusted with it. I would like them to live a different life. So I think a major non-scale victory is the way it's affected not just me, but my family in my household and the tools that it's taught them. And the other one, which might sound really like not food related at all, or is that I feel like I am a more present and centered person. That I feel like without the chatter of the food, without the distraction, without being able to numb out my feelings when I'm upset and I have to actually work through them and then address them with my family or the person, when it's feelings that is like you're mad at the person on the freeway or whatever, I just need to work through them. But when we have real conflict with our family, before I was eating it instead of feeling it and then addressing it. And I think it's allowed us to really grow and get closer and have, I'm a more patient person. I feel like I am a more empathetic and kind person. And I think that this program and the people in this program and the way we're called to support each other and be vulnerable with each other in this program has allowed me to grow like that. And I think honestly, that is what I've gotten out of it. And that's another thing that I don't want to get rid of.
That's awesome. So there's probably someone tonight, but if not tonight, and thank you for letting me record this, they're going to hear this and they're going to be amazed, because looking at you, Anna, it is amazing. is just amazing that you've lost 120 pounds.
Yeah.
And to
It's
hear your
unbelievable.
conviction as far as I am doing this. I am holding this recovery close because
Yeah.
I know that it can break that. And I'm just amazed at that. But what would you say to someone who is like you, who has tried everything and really, I mean, at one time you said you didn't even have any smaller clothes because you didn't have any hope for that.
No, I'd gotten rid of all of my smaller clothes. I knew, I actually really thought when I started writing in my food journal that first night that I would have a food journal with like 5 pages of food plans written out and then a bunch of empty pages behind it. Cause I have plenty of those. I have like a keto one and a Weight Watchers one. And I have tons of spiral notebooks with 5 or 10 or 15 pages of some diet filled out and menu plans and all kinds of other garbage because I've done all of them. And I thought that Bright Line Eating was going to be the same way, but I told you the other day that when I hit my 1 year, which has been somewhat recently, I made myself a 365-day food journal because I'm going to fill every page. I'm going to fill every page of this food journal, and I trust that. Now, I don't need a cheap spiral notebook because this is my food journal, and I'm going to fill it. And so
Awesome.
I love that. To the person who's struggling to start, I would say that this has been easier. When Tony said, no, it was actually easy. And I said, haha, you said that to this fat girl, right? And I walked away and I laughed. I wouldn't call this easy, but this is easier than laying in bed at night, feeling my heartbeat, wondering if I'm having a heart attack. Like my dad. This is easier than my feet hurting and having trouble walking up and down my stairs. This is easier than trying a new diet plan every other week and failing over and over and over again. This is easier than eating myself sick. And so on the other side of this hard, that sure, it's going to be hard in the beginning. We're going to white knuckle it. We're going to have to sing songs or call someone on the phone while you drive past the fast food restaurant and go, I am not going to turn into that restaurant. I'm going to keep driving and you're going to stay on the phone with me till I get there.
Wow.
On the other side of that hard is so much freedom and so much peace. If you can just push through it, just fight for it like your life depends on it. Because for me, it did. And so I fought for this like my life depends on it. And every day I armor up again with my risk factors and all of those things and all of my tools. And I armor up again to fight like my life depends on it.
Wow. I'm just, wow. That's amazing. And you know how I said in the beginning, like one person, that one person for you is Tony. I know you're going to be that one person. Just how cool is that? And another thing you're doing, you're changing the trajectory of your family.
Yes. Yes.
What you learned has gone by the wayside. That's gone.
Right.
They are learning new things. So
right.
Awesome.
I was resigned that I'll die of heart disease like everybody else in my family did. And now I don't have to think that anymore.
Yeah. You can think about RV trips and fun times later on in life.
Right.
Well, the time is closed. And do you have any last words?
I just want to thank everyone for being here. I did not look at you. It would have made me too nervous. But I'm so grateful that everyone was here. I'm grateful for this community. I'm grateful for you, Noreen, for creating these kinds of Zoom events. There's so many of these Zoom activities that we can do in this community. And I'm just grateful for that community that this movement has created.
Yes.
Where we don't feel alone and where we can learn. And every time I say learn and grow together, I don't mean grow. And that's what I think of. And we can learn from each other and just become that best version of ourselves. not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, and just operate, like I said, at a higher level here in Bright Line Eating.
Yeah. You know what, Anna, just thank you again. I consider you a teacher leader. I hope that you'll share in the Starting Out Bright private group too, because you have lots of good stuff,
I love
including
it. It's a great group.
this risk assessment stuff. I mean, this is good stuff. Like, this is a tool we can use every single day as you do. And, you know, coming away with that, and thank you for the kind words about this group, but it's people showing up.
Yes.
Whether it's every week or not, but also those who are willing to share their story as you have been today. It's really amazing. So I just thank you. And I thank all of you for being here tonight. And thank you so much. And I'm going to close as I do each week. Good night, stay bright, and don't let the bed bugs bite. Good night, everybody. So Anna, how would you like to play 3-Question Thursday?
Woo, okay, I guess this is going to be like I'm on the spot.
3-Question Thursday. Let's see. All right. You talk about the traveling, okay? So you're traveling with your family. When you're traveling like to a restaurant with your family or friends, what are you going to do then? Because that's not exactly, do you do the one plate meal or what do you do?
I do. We don't eat out often in our house anyway, but if we, and we do occasionally, but not often. I have favorite restaurants or types of restaurants that I like to go to where I know I can get the food I need. And it's about planning ahead for me. It's I need to know where I can get lots of vegetables and, and plant-based protein. And so I have certain restaurants I like. My family likes them. We will go to 2 restaurants if we have to sometimes in order to make everybody happy, because that's fine with me.
Okay.
It's about planning ahead. Right. And if someone says, can we go out to eat at this Italian restaurant, I know I'm not going to get food there. I will very kindly suggest and gently that we go somewhere else.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, question number 2, you said you have a garden the other day.
I do.
So what are you finding in your garden? What is growing? What are you doing with it?
So right now, can you believe I've been Bright Line Eating for over a year and I had never had a zoodle? Because zucchini noodles, like spiralized zucchini, right? I had never had a zoodle. I've been Bright Line Eating for over a year. I was a spaghetti squash fan, so I planted spaghetti squash, and I have way more spaghetti squash than a girl needs and not enough freezer space to use it. So I'm going to be gifting spaghetti squash to people, but they're like huge. But I also have an abundance of zucchini. And so in the slideshow, you had a picture of my most recent zoodle activity. Oh my gosh, those things are delicious. So just spiralizing my zucchini. Okay. And that's in my, Armenian cucumbers. I also spiralized those the other day and ate them in a Buddha bowl with some baked tofu. Amazing.
So when you do the zoodles, you don't boil them? What do you do?
No. So you want to barely even cook them. And I was saying, so when I made them the night I made them, I spiralized them and I just 2 minutes in a pan just to soften them. And then I put my sauce on top, which was a mock meat sauce with my mock meat and tomato sauce that I had made. But the next day when I was going to eat it as my leftovers, because I said my dinner's always my leftovers, right? I just put them in there raw with the sauce and the mock meat on it. And then when I microwaved them, it heated all it needed to heat, because you don't really want to cook them. And they were fantastic.
That's great. Okay.
My husband also loved them. He keeps saying, how can you keep handing me a pile of vegetables and plant protein? And I keep thinking it's delicious. And I was like, your taste buds have changed, honestly.
That's fantastic. 3rd question. This is for all the money. How good does it feel?
Better than I could ever have imagined. I thought I felt pretty good. When you brought up foot pain, you reminded me I had foot pain. I thought I felt pretty good. I was strong. I always told people I'm buff under this fat, because they'd be like, wow, Anna, you're really strong. And I was like, yeah, there's a 6-pack under all of this weight, right? But I thought I felt good. I had no idea the energy level, the way I can walk in the world, the way I can move in the world. Like, that was something I didn't realize that was an issue, like hiding behind people, or I didn't even know what it is I was doing it until I wasn't doing it anymore. And this feels better than I could ever imagine.
Wow.
It feels like home. Feels like home.
That's so great. That just gave me a tingle up my neck as far as just feeling like I'm back where I belong.
Yes. This
That's
is
where
what
I
I was
want to be
meant to be
too.
able to do. This is the person I was meant to be.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Well, Anna, thank you so much for being on Starting Out Bright. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for playing 3-Question Thursday.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon in the group.
Bye.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Stay bright. Good night.